Did you know it takes around 60 seconds for a brand to send a clear message that will impact buyers? My name is Natalia Ariza, and through this project I will show you the impact of color on food sellings. Okay, so my personal motivation when starting this was to find data that will help small food companies understand how the mind of their consumers work. So this filled into the area of marketing and neuromarketing because I wanted to show by how the strategy of color psychology is used to send a clear message and how it really works. So small food companies can use them to increase their sales. The modality is qualitative and quantitative because through surveys I wanted to find the results that would be analyzed and then given to small food companies. So it was important to have clear what was color psychology. So this is a visual strategy that sends a message to potential future buyers. So what they focus on is on seeing how visual stimuli toward color help buyer take a decision over what product they prefer and helps brand positionize themselves in the market by getting like a target group to like them more because of the message they are sending in a fast and an easy way. Many big companies use this strategy and has been now used by many small companies in the same way, but they don't really understand how it works. So this can affect their sellings. To understand the dynamic, we should know where it comes from and how it impacts. These two aspects will be fundamental to have a clear impact that will help you on the futures with your consumer. So to develop my investigation, I did two questions that were essential for it. The first one was how do colors influence decision making, and the second one was if colors is it was where color significance come from. Its importance is because first we had to understand how human behaviors change depending on the colors that are used on publicity. And second, we need to understand where its origins came from and why they have an impact on us and they have the ability to send a message. So my general objective, as I said before, was to give data to small food companies to help them to first to show them and how their mind of their consumers work, but also to help them understand the dynamic so they can use it in a correct way and that will benefit them. So in order to fulfill the general objective, there were a series of small objectives. The first one was to investigate, then to verify, and then to analyze. I wanted to investigate the origin of the meaning of colors that man have. The meaning of the origin of the meaning of the significance that man have given to colors. So then when I understand where the meaning of colors come from, I wanted to verify the results by making a survey and then analyzing the results and seeing how it's connected to what I previously investigated about the history of them. So my hypothesis was based on the theory that we have seen everywhere. When you look, if you want right now, look for in your phone for what is color psychology, and you will realize that color psychology it's something really general. It seems like it's really easy and everyone could use it. And for example, red means danger, and purple means luxury, and black means mystery, sadness, or death, and blue means calm. And we think that this is a general concept. So did I. I think that colors could be considered a universal way to communicate buyers. So I said, if all people were able to relate the same emotions toward a color, then color could be considered a universal way to communicate a message to buyers, regardless of their culture, context, or cultural context or social context. So I did for more information, and I wanted to find maybe some surveys or some projects that were similar to mine, and I found one that was called "The Influence of Color on Consumers' Preference" by Oscar Alvarez. So the purpose of of his project was really similar to mine because he wanted to test the theory if color was influencing buyers when choosing one product. So he developed his his survey in a very particular way, and I use this as example. He took 50 students in a range of 20 and 27 years from different socioeconomic levels. So I use this as reference and did a similar thing, taking into account that he recommends that in the future the age range will be changed to to carry out this study. So where do colors come from? I realized that meaning that some cultures have over colors come from history of them, from the history they had on their culture, or the impact they have through history, to be more specific. So I realized that in 1500s before Christ, the Homo erectus discovered fire. With fire, he used carbon, he used shell, he used coal. Sorry, he used coal to make cave drawings, but he also used blood. So I realized that black like represent what was left from the bonfires, like was from what was left, and it really hasn't like a transcendental meaning. But red start having like a very important meaning that has been kept over society over in that has been kept in different societies. So red meant for them that was like a synonym of blood. They got it from the animals, but also when one of them was hurt, they didn't have like an established language like we do now. So when one of them was hurt or was bleeding, like they could interpret it with signs and what they see around them, what was happening. So if they saw blood, the blood, they immediately like associated with danger or that something bad has happened. So that's why some societies still associate red with danger. I also looked for another society or another, in this case, a civilization that was the Egyptians. And here I realized that the dynamic of color changed a lot and its meanings depend a lot of the culture because they associated black with death, but they also associated with life and fertility. And this was because in their culture, death was something really positive and was the beginning of eternal life. So that's why they use black to represent in their paintings the eternal life and fertility that they want on their lands. So in here we can see that also a cloudy and dark sky when it rains help to grow plants. So they that's why black was like a positive color was perceived as death but eternal life because death for them was the beginning of eternal life. So this means that's why in this culture black is seen as a positive color. But on the other hand, well, in our culture it isn't. So we can see um, like really the impact of culture in the perception of color. Then I investigated about the Romans and I realized that they were the first civilization to have a regulatory use of colors. This means that they not everyone could use in their clothes whatever color they want. So, for example, purple and golden was only used by the high class or the emperor. White was for politicians and also upper class people, but also uh, philosophers or people that teachers and people that study or were thinkers. And bread was used for war was used by warriors. So we can see like still bread it's still like a symbol of danger of war and has come through history. I realized that colors like the primary colors red, yellow, and blue doesn't really change from culture to culture, but secondary and secondary and other colors really did change from culture to culture. So then I did my diagnosis that was to make a survey to 42 students from the GI school from grade 12, 11, 10, and 9, and 25 of them were women and 16 of them were men. The first question that I did was, what's your favorite color? This had the purpose to analyze the preference of the people that were in the survey, and also like to speculate if they would choose these tonalities or through the survey as when they were going, for example, when they were going to pick like a publicity, they will always be like guided or leaning to dark colors, because what the colors that were more liked were blue and black, so were like dark tonalities over red and yellow that they are warm tonalities. So I thought that this would be their preference on publicity. I realized that then I did another question to prove that color really has an impact on the behavior of people, because through color you can associate color to things you know. So for example, I put these four ice creams. They were mostly made of tea. They were like from tea extract. So they were supposed to be a little bit more lighter, because it's not usual to tea to pigment this much. But this brand use the color strategy to potentialize the color so it will resembles to something they already know, or some flavors they already know, so people will like them the most, or will be familiar with the taste, so they will like it. So the flavor that won was option number four, and here you can see that is the one that looks like chocolate. Then I asked them why they chose this image, and they said that it was because of the color, the flavor, and the toppings. In here, we can prove that really their colors makes you think about chocolate. The toppings are chocolates, and and the flavor they can really know what is the flavor. It's actually of tea, but the image doesn't let them know. So we can see that like they associated the flavor with the color. This shows that the brain has like the ability to take to associate things, for example, to associate the color with the flavor, because it has a memory of this flavor and this color together. So that's why brands use color to potentialize or to trick the brain into something it likes. Then I did a question that had the purpose of understanding if consumers read the ingredients. So here I show two chocolate bars with different packaging, and they could see the ingredients. They chose peak over machijenga, so we can see like they like the most colored one over the one on top that is a little bit darker. When I asked them why they prefer it, most of them talk about design, packaging, color, um, size. I don't really understand why they pick over machijenga, because really the most sweet chocolate is machijenga, and and then I realized that none of them wrote read the ingredients. Over for it to a student, not one single person read what was writing on the packaging. And then I start wondering why they chose pink over machijenga if they had said previously that their favorite color was a dark color. So I thought that they would choose this one, machijenga, the one that's on top. And I realized that actually um, they don't really their favorite colors doesn't make them like guide towards some packaging or some product. Um, the what makes them guide is what makes them buy something is the message that the colors transmit to them. So a more vivid color sends um, a more dynamic, like a more childish way of seeing this package. So it makes you interpret it and associate it with children. And when you associate things with children, your brain automatically think of sugar. So that's why they thought this chocolate was the best one, because they thought it was more sweet or it will taste better than machijenga. But the truth is that this chocolate is really bitter, it's gluten free, it's vegan, and it doesn't contain a lot of sugar. It doesn't contain sugar, and also it contains ingredients like coffee, so it's really, really weird. Then on my field diary, I had original sessions planned, and they were going to be like some surveys as I did before, but they were going to be in a Montenegro school for people with lower socioeconomic levels compared to the ones. And I was also going to do another one in the high school. But since I couldn't go because of the coronavirus, I and the mandatory isolation, I did another sessions that were seeing a documentary on Netflix and seeing and it was called Abstract, and seeing how the impact of color change and the dynamic of colors of the uses of colors change depending on the area of design they are on. I analyzed the first season of the documentary from session 1 to 4, and then on the fifth and sixth session, I sent the link to to people that I consider that had different socioeconomic that were in different socioeconomic levels, and asked them the favor to send them to their friends. And then on the sixth session, I analyzed the results that were obtained. So with the documentary, I realized that the colors change depending on the discipline, and that, for example, red color, this doesn't mean the same in illustration or graphic design that it means on industrial design and clothes sellings. And in the second survey, I realized that color changes depending on the socioeconomic level. For example, GI school students realize that blue colors make them feel sadness, while people from the Sena, make them blue color make them feel interest. So we can see like the dynamic of colors, how they really perceive it in different ways depending on the socioeconomic level. Then I realized that the stratum, gender, and age were really important factors when creating a package or advertisement. Color didn't send a message on its own, it needed a context, and it isn't like a language, but it's more like a tool to potentialize a message and make it a little bit and make it an approach in a more fast in a more strategic way to consumers. So it really needs a cultural context to send a message, because the message it will be sent it will be linked to the culture it is on it is in. So in conclusion, the hypothesis was really incorrect, because colors are a tool, not a tool to potentialize a message, but they are not like an universal language. So culture is is really important for colors to have for colors to have a meaning. It's really important to take into consideration the culture. So the social context and the culture are two aspects that are very important. Then I could conclude that advertisement with dark colors attract people with a higher stratum audience, but it's not something that doesn't like. They tend to like things that have dark colors. Meanwhile, a lower stratum, from like for example stratum 1 and 2, prefer bright colors. Finally, if you want to continue with this project, you have to be clear about the population to which the project is directed, and take into account factors such as sex and socioeconomic status. So you have to know what is the group you are directing and you want to sell to your you want to sell your products to. It is really important also to have an advisor in the project that is an expert on the area, because since I didn't have one, I didn't know a lot about marketing or about conducting surveys. I had a lot of mistakes that took me a lot of time to correct. And finally, pick an area in which you want to focus your project on. For example, I focus mine on food selling, but you can focus yours like on the beauty market, and you will see like that the message that colors change. Also, the message that colors send changes depending on the group of persons you are trying to sell to. And this was my project called The Impact of Color into Food Sellings. Thank you so much for your attention.